Okay, hey guys. So I'm going to be starting off with a quote that someone once told, which says, "If the meaning of your life is lost, ask help for finding it. But what if the person is asking for help and yet we don't realize that, or even worse, don't know what to do when they approach us?" Good day to everyone here, and I'm glad all of you could join us today. Mental health and suicide is such a hush hush topic all over the world, and we don't realize the significance of it until we lose someone near and dear to us. So, why wait when you can save a life and help them out? Live your life knowing your near ones can trust you and talk about this to you and get the support they need from you. To help you understand more about mental health and signs of people around you in distress, we have Claudia Sartor, the coordinator of Global Mental Health Peer Network, an organization of people with lived experience from around the globe working towards mental health. Claudia began her professional career as an attorney of law, and with time, she explored the world of mental health and has been a global mental health advocacy leader since 2017. Her passion for mental health was inspired by her personal experience living with anxiety and OCD. After undergoing treatment, Claudia chose to pursue her career in psychology, and now she works as a part time registered wellness counselor in South Africa and helps her clients with personal and professional development. She is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Global Mental Health Peer Network too, and is also the facilitator for youth collaborations with other mental health organizations. And her work is also focused on providing workspace mental health services to businesses locally and globally. She has also co-authored a paper titled Perspectives, Persons with Lived Experiences with Mental Health Conditions in Service Delivery, Development and Leadership, which was published online on 12th May 2021 by Cambridge University Press. She has also written many blogs, the latest one titled From Struggle to Strength, The Power of Lived Experience for Channel Kindness, a digital platform associated with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation. Please welcome Claudia along with me to our session today on the global perspectives on mental health and suicide prevention. Over to you, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Manisha. That was such a nice introduction, and I see so many claps on the board. Thank you so very much. I'm very excited to be here today. This is such an amazing opportunity. And I also see a lot of people that are from the Global Mental Health Peer Network here. So that makes me really happy and proud. So I'm ready to start whenever you need me to.
I think we can start.
Okay, cool. So can I share screen?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Let me just give this a shot. Cool. Can you see it?
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. Okay, so I thought that I would start off just explaining a little bit about the peer network.
Sure.
So I say peer network just because Global Mental Health Peer Network is so long. So for the duration of the talk, I'll refer to it as the peer network. So as you mentioned, I'm Deputy CEO, and so here's my email address should anyone want to contact me after this event, and then there is the website for more information. So the legal status of the peer network.
Claudia, you can put it on whole screen mode, slideshow mode. It'll be more.
How do I? Interesting here. Through remote control.
The slideshow icon on the corner below, next to the zooming part. Towards the other side of the zooming part.
Oh.
Wait. Last one, just next to the negative symbol.
Why can I not? Am I?
No, the next one. No, 2, 3, the third icon from that.
This way?
Yeah,
slideshow.
That one. Yes, that one.
Okay. Cool. So will it just enable it now?
Yeah.
There we go. Cool. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we're an international mental health experts by experience organization, often referred to as persons with lived experience, and our global office is based in Johannesburg, South Africa. So in 2018, we registered as a non-profit organization under the South African laws. And subsequently in 2019, we registered as a public benefit organization. Last year, we were fortunate enough to fill the criteria to receive an equivalency determination certificate, which is registered, which is recognized as a United States public charity. So it's an equivalent to that, which is really amazing. So since our establishment in 2018, the focus of our work has primarily been on building a sustainable platform for persons with lived experience to come together. And we do this in two ways. We first want to develop a global leadership of lived experience, so developing individuals with lived experience, helping them grow from a local and national level to a global level. And the second being creating a sophisticated platform where persons with lived experience can come together, share their views, their opinions, anything that directly affects them as so far as mental health is concerned. So the partners that we work with, this is a very short paragraph on who we work with, but we work very closely with the United Nations agencies, World Health Organization. There's a large number of international organizations as well, a few within the European region. We sit on numerous boards and committees as well, and advisory boards. And the most recent partnerships has been with IPS Recovery and UCOMS, so both in Europe, one in Portugal and one in Netherlands. So what makes us unique is that everybody within our organization, from volunteers to the global office, to people that help do things outside of the space itself that we work in, are all persons with lived experience. And that really makes us a wealthy organization in terms of our values and our perspectives, because everybody is 100% lived experience in our organization, which is really unique. We kind of fit into the world of mental health from a very unique perspective. So our vision was and is to strengthen the voices of persons with lived experience globally through empowerment and inspiring respect and acknowledgement of their experiences, and viewing people as equal citizens of the world. So despite having a mental health condition, you're still an equally important citizen of the world. Our mission, to quickly reiterate what I said earlier, is to create communities where persons with lived experience are valued as equal citizens of the world, free from stigma, discrimination, prejudice, and inequality. And essentially what we're doing, and I think Manisha and a lot of people that I see attending here today can agree, that we are a platform that gives a voice to the voiceless, and a platform where we help those with lived experience get meaningfully and authentically involved and really be catalysts of change when it comes to policies, processes, even mental health awareness in general. To give you a brief overview, we're obviously funded by the Open Society Foundation. They help us with our operations, so that's how we remain sustainable. We only have 3 people in our global office structure, which is Charlene, who's our founder and CEO. Then it's myself and Zach. I can make this presentation shareable if it's allowed, Manisha, afterwards, so people can kind of have a look at what we actually do.
Yeah, sure.
And just not to take time away from the actual topic. You introduced me quite nicely, so that kind of gives an indication of what I'm all about. So let me move on. Zach, I actually think is on this call, so maybe raise your hand, Zach, so everyone can see you. Who's our project assistant. Then we've got so this is our structure. So you'll see we've got the board of management. So they sit at the top. That's essentially our bosses. Then a global office, which is the 3 individuals I showed you now. Then we've got a regional executive committee. So this is across the 6 World Health Organization regions. We've got deputies and regional leads for that committee. And then we've got the country executive, which I'll go into a little bit later. We've got mentors as well that help the new joiners come in and experience what it's like to join the network, what does it mean for them, and help them grow. And then over here on the right-hand, or my right-hand side, you can see we've got various subcommittees ranging from topics that were specifically chosen by our members. So right now we have research and youth, LGBTQ, education, women empowerment, and family and carer. And we've also got a group, which has not yet been established as a subcommittee, but a group that's on suicide prevention. And I'll share something towards the end of the presentation for you guys to review and have a look at. So in total, we are represented in 38 countries by 100 representatives across Europe, Africa, Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and Western Pacific. Sorry, I had a bit of a moment. Here's all the countries, so I'm not going to go into them. It's just for you to see for now. What I wanted to show you is the amazing or the strength of people coming together really shows in this graph. So in 2018, when we started, we were sitting at just under 15 representatives worldwide. From 2018 to 2021, to date, we are on 100. So that shows how much involvement and how much people do genuinely want to get involved as a lived experience person in changing and being agents of change for global mental health topics. What do we stand for, and what is the premise of our work? We believe in an integrated and holistic response to mental health care and treatment. So that incorporates your medical, social, and human rights model, and not only focusing on the biomedical model. We need to look at it from a holistic perspective. This is important as well in terms of suicide prevention. So I'll come to that later, and I'll link the two together there. We believe in a human rights-based approach within an operating framework that is focused on empowerment, recovery, and peer support. We're very passionate about peer support, and peer support could also be a valuable resource for suicide prevention. Okay, I'm not going to go through that part. So what we do as well is we provide expert by experience services. So for an example, we'll have a research team from abroad who will contact us to say they would like to do research with youth aged between 18 and 24, and they would like to talk about suicide prevention, and they would like to do an engagement session. We then incorporate and involve our own members to those topics to give recommendations to help with that. There's a lot of activity and engagement. We offer virtual workshops on a range of topics, including the impact of COVID on mental health, thriving at the workplace, lived experience stories. We provide workplace mental health policy reviews. If there is, corporates have existing policies, we look and we review them and update them and try to get them closest to the more practical global practices that are in place. We establish peer support groups, and we give a lot of information. So again, just here very quickly, we're unique. Why? Because we're 100% lived experience with diverse voices. Okay, so now we're going to go into suicide, and this is the crux of this whole event. So I think this is the exciting part. So what do the stats say, right? So we're looking at it from a global perspective. So I took the World Health Organization being our leading source. The World Health Organization confirms that every year, close to 800 people die as a result of suicide, and an attempt is made every 3 seconds. There was also 2 years ago a big uproar about this, and a lot of organizations and the World Health Organization came together to really bring out the importance of suicide awareness, because it was almost like it's becoming such a global pandemic in itself, right? 77% of global suicides occur in low and middle income countries. So the global south is affected quite heavily in this. And if we look at suicide and look beyond suicide, right? Suicide in itself will have its own effects. And then it has a ripple effect that then directly impacts on the communities, on the person's friends, families, and it affects the people who have also lost that person. And with that, the World Health Organization then said, you know what, this actually is a public health priority. And we need to encourage countries to strengthen their suicide prevention strategies, and if they don't have those in place, to create them, to begin the process of starting something, putting people together, create a team, and strategize for prevention. And the stats also say that your most common types of methods of suicide globally is the self-ingestion of pesticides. I know this used to happen quite a lot in Nigeria, hanging and firearms as well. Often we talk about the prevention of suicide, right? And we think, okay, how do we really prevent suicide? And the other question is, can we? Can we actually prevent suicide? And I think it's such a difficult question to answer and say yes or no to, but we can say that there are things that we can do at a community level and at an individual level to try and reduce the levels or the numbers of suicide attempts and actual suicides. So how do we prevent suicide, right? The World Health Organization has a Live Life program. Apologies for that. So Live Life program that recommends the following key effective evidence-based interventions. So this is stuff that has worked before based on evidence. Right, so the first being limit access to the means of suicide. So what available methods, what are the things that are in the person's house, homes, workplaces that they could use? Medication, firearms, pesticides, remove them, try to remove them. And also do it within reason. Don't place yourself in harm. If you're going to get hurt in the process, we need to step back and think, okay, where's our boundaries? Second, educate socio-emotional life skills in adolescence. We need to teach people, and not just adolescents, but everybody, all age ranges need to be taught life skills that can help themselves in terms of self-regulation and self-help techniques to try and prevent the suicide from happening. For me personally, professionally, my opinion is early identification of signs of suicide or suicidal ideations is key. Once you've got early identification covered, then you manage it, and then you follow up with the person who is being affected by those suicidal ideations. So it's almost like prevention before cure sort of notion. Within the workplace, employees should be referred immediately to counselors through their employee assistance programs. If there is peer support work at the schools, workplaces, churches, use those, but these people do need to be trained so that they're able to actually help people in these severe situations. And also maybe getting mental health champions involved, advocacy leaders, lived experience, people who have attempted suicide and, fortunately not have gone through with it, and that they're here today to share their stories. That's also very important. And so those are the key aspects that, the WHO says we should focus on. And this is practices that are happening in many countries, but not yet everywhere in the world. So what are the obstacles that we face? Okay, why can't we just prevent suicide? Right, if we think about it, why? Seems and sounds easy enough. Why don't we just tell someone, no, don't do it? Okay, it's not that easy, right? So there's various obstacles I want to go through. And I would also love if we can have some engagement later on some of these things. So stigma being the first, foremost, and the most obvious. Stigma and victimization surrounding mental disorders and suicide prevents people from seeking professional help, right? So that means if they're thinking of taking their own life, they're not going to seek help because now there's stigma associated. So they may not seek help and therefore not get the help that they need. And if they do get help, so this is sort of the catch-22 situation. If they do get help, how are they going to reintegrate back into their family systems, into workplaces, or into schools? Because then there's that stigma of that person attempted suicide, right? So we've got to be very cautious in the way in which we approach this. And if we can destigmatize this, it's going to make a huge difference overall. I took something a paragraph out of a an author from South Africa. I know it's not a global perspective, but it is, but it is something I found interesting and relevant. Mental health conditions affect the individual's family relationships over time, and it also places strains on the family's systems, making it difficult for the individual to reintegrate into family structures. So that's what I was saying earlier. How do you repair a relationship with your partner if you attempted suicide? What are the dynamics? What comes into place, right? So this may result in the unnecessary strain being placed on that individual, and this can affect them across all sectors of their life. So maybe it affects their work and they can't work properly. So job functionality is diminished. Family relationships are not great, and so forth. Then we got myths, right? There's a lot of myths that need to be debunked. They are still attached to mental health, which are still attached to mental health conditions. So, for example, people with mental health conditions are perceived as lazy, mad, crazy, attention-seeking, and within some very cultural countries and contexts, there's the ideation that people are possessed by demons. They're carrying out witchcraft rituals, and they're incompetent to work and give back to the community. That's a very big thing to have placed on your shoulders, because we're not lazy, we're not mad, we're not attention seeking. We are also not we are not our illness, right? We're our own person. Our illness is part of who we are. So we shouldn't be attacked for that, shamed for that. The third being poor access to education, along with the lack of access to adequate information. So especially within our low and middle income countries, there is a lack of resources. There's a lack of understanding. There's not enough human rights literacy among communities, right? And among people with lived experience who are subjected to social and economic inequalities. And if we can kind of get that right and change that around a bit, I think that's also going to make a huge difference in overcoming, or not overcoming, but preventing suicide and even just general mental health disorders. Then you've got misperceptions. Some countries, and I say countries because it's just really broad, but people actually do this, humans do this. We still say it's unimaginable that someone with a mental health condition can be meaningfully employed. Right? That's a huge obstacle, because here we are today, most of us with lived experience, if not all. I'm doing a presentation, people are holding wonderful careers. We are not incompetent. We can continue, and we can be like other people, if not even better, right? So the other obstacle is the lack of awareness, right? Prevention of suicide has been inadequately addressed due to a lack of awareness around mental health problems, and it's still seen as unacceptable in many societies to even just talk about it. So if we can't get to a place where we can just talk about suicide or just talk about mental health in general, how are we going to get forward, right? So we have to push through that barrier. So to date, this also comes from the WHO, only a few countries have included suicide prevention among their health priorities, and only 38 countries report having a national suicide prevention strategy. We have what, like 190 countries, and we only have 38 that has a national suicide prevention strategy. That's just not good enough, right? That's just not good enough. So we really need to raise community awareness to break down the taboo, and because how are we going to make progress in preventing suicide if we can't even just talk about it? So part of the obstacles, right, when it comes to suicide is, how do we perceive suicide from a legal perspective, right? So from a legal perspective, if we think about it, is suicide the same as murder? Is a suicide attempt the same as a murder attempt to murder someone? So legally, we always have that, it's about the intention to kill, the intention to murder someone. Is suicide really that kind of intention? Most times people think about suicide because not necessarily because they want to hurt themselves or kill themselves, but more to get themselves out of the pain and the suffering. They just want that pain and suffering to stop. And the sad thing is that in many countries, suicide remains a criminal offense. So we're looking at in 20 countries, and this is, you can look at the World Health Organization. It says dating far back as 160 years ago. So where are we if suicide is still in many countries looked at as a crime? We cannot continue raising awareness. It doesn't make sense, because then we're stepping backwards instead of going forward. So if we think about all these countries that have criminalized suicide, okay, why? So the argument is, if we make suicide a crime legally in terms of legislation, that means the person may or may not, or it may deter the person from actually going through with the suicide. And evidence has shown that that's not the case. Experts have said that that's not the case. It's not going to stop someone from actually, carrying out the suicide. So it really is actually counterproductive. It doesn't deter people from taking their lives, but it deters them actually from seeking help. So this links back to stigma as well, right? It's got the same effects. It deters people from seeking help in a moment of acute crisis and potentially placing them in facilities where they may not receive the support that they need. Because instead of actually being put in a hospital, maybe, if they are in a really bad situation, if it's seen as a crime, you go to jail, you get punished by law. And this is real, and it's absolutely not okay. And when I talk about this, I get super passionate about this, because I don't feel that this is right in any stretch of the imagination. So I've put a link here for you guys from United for Global Mental Health, who are really, they had a huge working group on suicide prevention, and they came up with this report, and it's called Decriminalizing Suicide, Saving Lives, Reducing Stigma, and examining the civil laws which criminalize suicide and the implications they have around the world. So this is the link here. You're more than welcome to use it. I don't know, Manisha, if you'll be putting the link separately, or if you want to share this.
We'll share the entire PPT at the end of the class.
Okay, great. Cool. All right, so you guys will then be able to have a look at this, and it's a really interesting report. So language use in suicide. Why is language use so important, firstly, before we even look at how it pertains to suicide? So as mental health advocates, we know we need to speak. When we're speaking about mental health, we really need to be careful on how we say things, what terminology do we use, and we do that so as not to further stigmatize and not to make people feel like victims, right? So in the case of suicide, avoid using words such as committed suicide and killed himself or herself. Because here you put the word committed, sounds like a crime. Killed sounds like a crime. So avoid that terminology. So when you're talking about someone that's unfortunately passed away due to suicide, you say that person killed himself. Okay, we try to rephrase it. Try use a respectful language, neutral language when we're referring to suicide. Essentially, by using the correct language, we avoid an association between suicide and crime, which may alienate some people and may prevent them from seeking help. We also need to be realistic that there's cultural, social, economic, and religious factors that come into play when it comes to mental health as well as suicide. We need to take them into context, but we also need to make sure that we are following the global practices and how those global practices help improve how we handle cases by suicide. So again, just using respectful language. So what can we do to overcome the obstacles? What does that mean for us? Us at a community level, us as relevant stakeholders, us as individuals, what can we do? So the first being improving mental health and human rights literacy. So we need to advance initiatives to promote awareness of suicide prevention in policy and practice. That's the first thing. Second thing is we need to address the stigma within the mental health system and just stigma at large, right? Because you can be at the workplace, and I'm just going to side note here, but I remember being, when I worked at an international bank a good couple of years ago, I was standing within our corridors, and someone was talking to a colleague, and they went, "Oh yeah, this person's having a bipolar moment." That's not right. You don't do that kind of stuff, right? So we need to address the stigma worldwide, everywhere, within all contexts, to prevent it from slowing down progress in transforming mental health care and treatment. We need to also restore the power imbalances that exist. So eliminating the us versus them saga, right? And we see that a lot within the psychiatry field, in the medical field as well, the us versus them. If I'm a psychiatrist, can I also come out and talk about my lived experience, or is that not okay? Right? So there's a lot of the power imbalances that are also at play. And then the other one being to decriminalize, so make it not a crime, right? If we do that, and we do that hand in hand with situation analysis, collaboration, collective awareness, capacity building is very important, financing, monitoring and evaluation, and then also global and national advocacy work towards the decriminalization of suicide. And if we look at this logically, if we can put in places, so if we think of it from like a bottom-up approach, if we fix the practices and policies underneath at the bottom, we decriminalize the suicide, we then reduce stigma, and then with that we get better, and then we reduce the stigma, which means we speak and use the correct language. So we're just improving, building a new sort of way of approaching mental health and suicide. So I hope that somewhat makes sense, but the idea is if we can fix it at a policy level, we can climb up towards eventually, not now and probably in decades to come, but we can get better at approaching mental health. So what can you do, right? If you're an employer, what can you do? If you're a family, a friend, loved one, what can you do? So for employers, I've just got a few little points here. If you're an employer and you're seeing staff going through mental health issues, right? Provide information sessions for your staff on mental health and suicide prevention. So do some research, find that, allow time for your staff to understand what mental health means. Ensure all staff know what resources are available for support within the organization and also outside of the organization. Create a work environment in which colleagues feel comfortable to talk about their problems, right? So that they don't feel judged, because essentially if it's affecting their ability to do their jobs, they should be able to have a place where they can talk about what's going on. If you're a colleague and you see your peer is going through something and you're really nervous, you've heard them talk about suicide, you've heard them speak of, I'm going to just overdose, follow up with your HR person, your health team manager, and ask them, are there any policies in place at our work? Are there processes that we could help, that we could follow that could help this person? Ask the questions, don't be shy. We need to ask. Ask if it's in place. If it's not in place, then we need to look at creating a team that, what can we do to help this person lessen the work stresses? So instead of them working 6 days a week, can we make it 4 days? Can they work from home? Can we share responsibilities equally within the teams? So look at other additional resources that you could use as a workplace, right? And also, if you don't have policies in place, or you don't know how to proceed with talks and mental health sessions or information sessions, reach out to lived experience organizations who offer workplace mental health services to review process, to help you create policies, really get involved. The time is now. COVID has created such a big, the big spotlight is now on mental health because of COVID, and companies are starting to realize the importance of employee well-being, Let's make use of a bad situation. Let's turn it into something positive. Let's get policies in place. Let's make the change that's necessary. If you're family and friends, make sure that you don't judge a book by its cover. A lot of the time, what you see over here, face value, is not really what's happening inside. So we need to be very careful about that. Suicide needs to be treated with immense caution. And we must remember to place the individual at the center of hope in increasing the possibility of suicide prevention. Studies show that people, and I think I said this earlier, studies show that people who attempt suicide don't want to die. They want to end their suffering, right? That's all they really want. They don't actually want to take their own life. They just want that to end. So how do you then approach someone who's battling suicidal ideations? And this is a tough one because firstly, it's a like no, it's not a one size fits all. Everybody's different. We all have unique things we need to look at. We have unique problems. We have unique personalities. We have different ways of reacting to stresses. So we really need to be cautious. First thing I would suggest is be willing to listen, allow expressions of feelings, and accept the feelings. And the reason I've put over here, accept the feelings, is you don't have to understand the person's feelings, but you do need to accept them. Accept that it's real and that's what the person's feeling. I don't have to, so if I'm having a bad day and my OCD is so bad and I can't stop, I don't expect someone to understand what I'm feeling. But if they can just maybe wipe the counter for me and help me, that's a small little something that's going to take away that stress that I have, right? So accept the feelings that this person has. And in that way, you're actually being non-judgmental, you're being objective. Something very important is don't debate whether suicide is right or wrong. It's not the time for that. It's not about that. It's about where's this person? Why are they in such a bad place? And what can we do to help? And also don't justify if their feelings are right or wrong. Don't lecture on the value of life. They know the value of life. They're battling with having to let go and not be part of life. They understand the value of life, but they just can't see themselves getting out of the deep, dark hole that they're sitting or that they're lying in or that they've been thrown in. So, don't lecture on the value of life. That can set the fire in a totally opposite way, and that's not what you want. Show interest, empathy, and support. So if the only thing that you do is drive them to the hospital to get their medication, that's your support. That's part of your help, right? You don't have to go further and beyond, but just if they need a phone call and they want to phone you, that's support, and that's also just as good enough. A big, big red flag here is do not dare him or her to do it. So a lot of the times we see it in movies, we hear us talk when we fight with friends, I dare you to do that. You're just attention seeking, so I want to see you actually do that. Don't do that to people who are this vulnerable. It's not okay. Firstly, you're undermining them, their intelligence, you're undermining their feelings, and that may just set them like this, and before you know it, it's going to be really bad. So don't dare him or her to do it. Remove available means such as sharp objects, guns, or pills. Don't leave them alone. If you feel like it's really serious and they can't be left alone, get help from persons that are specialized in crisis intervention and suicide prevention. And if necessary, get in touch with the nearest hospital or ambulance, suicide prevention helplines. And I want to give you, and I want to kind of just touch on this a little bit more. And the reason I say is if necessary, get in touch with an ambulance, paramedics, hospital, is because if you call the police, often that's the case, right? This person's got a gun to their head. You're maybe on the phone with them and they're like, I'm going to do it. You're panicking. You don't know what to do. Don't call the police unless it's seriously like they're shooting and things are happening and people are dying. That's not them, because we're criminalizing that again. Then we're making them criminals, and that's not what we're meant to do. We need to bring an ambulance. It's a health issue, not a crime issue, right? But then again, there is that fair line of, are they going to be harming themselves and others, or others? So we need to just keep that, sort of out in the open. But don't phone the police unless it's absolutely necessary. I've actually experienced that on a few occasions when I worked at the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, which is a call center helping people that are unemployed, that don't have access to healthcare. They would phone us for crisis management, and that happened to us before. And we were taught to not phone the police because this makes them seem like a criminal. Something that I would, if there's anything that you can take from this as a person watching someone going through something like that, is don't be sworn to secrecy. Don't keep someone's suicidal ideation as a secret in an attempt to preserve your relationship, because that puts you in a very bad position, right? If that means you can't tell anyone else, just to keep your relationship. So if you feel the person is in danger, rather seek support, and do this very cautiously, but don't keep it a secret. Doesn't mean, I don't mean go and tell everybody, but make sure that the person is not asking you to keep it as a secret. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is, earlier I mentioned that we have a suicide prevention group at the Peer Network. It was established earlier this year in March 2021. We have 14 participants ranging from Indonesia, India, South Africa, Australia, Kenya, Poland, and so forth. And they came together this year to talk about their position on suicide prevention. So here is the link. You're more than welcome to download this. It's a very interesting position statement signed by many of our executive committee members. And ideally, what it is we're trying to enhance suicide prevention efforts by creating communities where persons with lived experience are valued as equal citizens of the world, free from stigma and discrimination, right? And by seeing suicide as a tragedy and the cry for systematic change. Keyword, systematic change. Not changing the person, but what can we do from a systems perspective? What can we do as advocacy leaders? What can we do as professionals? So this is available for download, and it's in a PDF format if you'd like to have a look at it. I think that's the end of my presentation. I hope I didn't talk too much. I hope I kept you engaged, and I'm happy to hear any Q&As if there is.
That was a really nice presentation. Thank you so much, Claudia. And I'm sure a lot of us from Karnataka, India, and from all over the world understood so much about how suicide prevention works and how important it is for us. We do have a few questions. Shall we take them up?
Yeah, sure.
So the first question is by Raihan, which says, how can we know that a person is suffering from suicidal thoughts?
So you would have to listen very carefully to what they're saying. Often they will say, I'd rather not wake up tomorrow. I don't want to deal with this anymore. They will also kind of remove themselves from social situations. So I think, yeah, as much as I had said earlier, language, we need to listen to what they're saying. Is there a big change in their behavior? If so, what? Right? Are they continuously, or does it appear that they're sad all the time? Does it feel like they're lacking? Are they saying things like, you know what, there's just no hope for anymore. There's no more hope. I'm hopeless. There's nothing left for me after this. So listen to those keywords, because the main thing with someone that's suffering from suicidal ideations is that lack of hope. They see that there is no hope for them, in spite of whatever's available. They see no hope. And if they start saying, I'll work tomorrow, I don't want to wake up because what's the point? things like that, listen carefully and attach that with their actual behaviors. What behaviors are they showing?
Okay, I hope Raihan's start is clear. The next question is from Jawaria. Regarding obstacles in preventing suicides when we consider suicide helplines, there are many survivors who have spoken up about how inefficient the helpline numbers were, and most of them were put on hold or transferred to automated messages. Is there any way we can make the system more efficient?
That's a really good point. That's something that I experienced at that hotline, like I was saying, especially when it's a hotline that's made for persons that can't reach out for further healthcare. Then the call centers are completely inundated, right? So this is where we need to look at what is happening in those countries, what policies are in place, are there policies in place? Because the more foundation we create, the less burden gets placed throughout the different systems. So most of the times it would have to be like, are they getting enough funding so that they can have more phones put up or more counselors at the center? It's a very good point, and that's something that should be part of their of the national suicide prevention techniques or methods, because a lot of people can miss the opportunity to get help because they'll get tired of waiting, or like you say, they'll be put on hold. So I think call centers as well need to see what their resources are and what can they do to improve on that. I don't really have an actual answer to say this is what they can do, but I do know that it needs to be something related to funding and something related to policy and processes that are in place to help them help others.
Yeah, true. I'm sure Jawaria's doubt is cleared. Is it Jawaria? And the next question is by Sahana. What to do when their suffering is long and whatever you tell don't console them? Maybe I'm in search of a demo on how to console properly.
Okay. So, Sahana, are you referring to if you're talking to the person and this person's just not listening, not willing to listen, and you don't kind of know what to do anymore? Am I understanding the question correctly?
Yeah, she texted saying yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see that. So you would need to, so there's such a thing as compassion fatigue, right? So the more you try to help somebody, the more they don't want help. You start getting tired, you start getting frustrated, you want to pull away. If this person is not listening, if there is really just nothing more you can say to them, then, I would approach the closest family member, the next of kin, or, try reach out to a professional on their behalf, but with their consent. So you ask them, look, I'm talking to you, I've tried, can I help you find a professional, or can I help you with contact numbers for the different hotlines? There's also a lot of hotlines that do emails now in South Africa. I don't know globally, but I would think so. Can I help you email? So always look at what other things you could do. Because, and I'm hoping, I want to point out somebody here, but I don't want to put on the spotlight. But I think if somebody with experience of suicide could also maybe give an input to that, I think that would be a great help. I don't want to pressure anyone, but I would definitely look at what else can you do. Can you print out brochures about suicide prevention? Can you print out or can you give them additional information? What else can you offer? You could say, you know what, we're talking, but this doesn't seem to be helping. What can I do? Let me know how I can help you. So place it so that it becomes, how can you help? But bearing in mind that you cannot get so invested that your mental health and well-being gets destroyed along the way. It's very difficult to do a proper demo because each person is different and each situation is different. Some suicidal ideations are directly linked to mental health conditions, others are not. You don't necessarily have to be diagnosed with bipolar or schizophrenia, for example, in order to have suicidal ideations. So each situation will be different. I hope I kind of answered that question.
Sahana, was that okay? Do you have any more doubts? Okay, thank you. Our next question is by Lucia. Is it okay to pile religious beliefs onto someone who is suicidal?
No. Very touchy subject within the mental health field. Just as much as we say don't criminalize it, also don't call it a sin. Don't say find peace in God or however it may be. That person may not be religious. That person may not feel the same, and that might create an even more negative impact. So politics and religion we always keep aside when we're looking at mental health. Always. You never involve that unless, of course, it's, for example, that's your sister and you guys both go to church and you both follow that. Then I think between you two you could. But generally, and the global practice is no, to try not to avoid that as much as possible.
That's as many doubts as we've gotten so far. Yeah. Anyone else have any other doubts?
I was just thinking, I see Marie responded. I would, if I don't want to put on the spot, but I would love to hear her take on, what can you say to someone? Yes, she's got her hand up. Can we take it, Benita?
Yeah.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Claudia. I have loved every bit of the conversation. Yeah, so I'm a suicide survivor and I am in Douala, Cameroon. And this day comes with a lot of mixed feelings. And I just told myself today, go out and do any advocacy and just do whatever I can do today. And I know that we are so many all over the world. And I am in one of those countries where it is so hush-hush, kind of taboo. I am really like one of the only people in my country who does this kind of work with her lived experience. And it used to be daunting, but now I am like so fierce, such a fierce. I agree with you, Claudia, that there's no one size fit all. There's no one story. It is really like each person's own experience, really. And in my case, it took me a while to get to the point of deciding that I will have to do something. I will not just be thinking about it to get to that really hopeless point. But I used to sleep at night, and before I sleep, I'll be like, Father, may I not wake up tomorrow, and I wish this is my last night. And then I will even write something in my journal and I'll be like, please take care of my children, but I can't take this anymore. Just call me. I was calling for death. And then when I will wake up in the morning, I'll be feeling so bad. And I'll be like, how can this happen? I'm tired of this life. So yes, it wasn't because I wanted to die, but I didn't want to live that kind of life anymore. And I didn't know that I could take myself out. And I didn't know that I could do something for myself, or I could even reach out. I didn't know, in my country, we don't have access to it. At that time, the internet was more of like to go and look for white men and stuff. So I worked somewhere where nobody had to have a laptop. There was one secretary, so you give everything to the secretary to do. I had no smartphone. I have a very closed-up family. So into religion, if you just say something like, oh, we have to pray and fast. No, that is so, how can you say that? No. So, I know I tried once and it was like, okay, well, come over, spend 2 weeks, we'll see how, but that wasn't what I wanted. And nobody asked me, like, what do you need? How can I help you? Okay, can you just talk? Like, I'm a psychotherapist today, and my clients always give me feedback and say, I love the way you listen to me. And I'm like, I wish somebody had listened to me that way. So that's why I also do this kind of things. I was 5 months pregnant. You can imagine how desperate I was to end my pain. And this morning I was talking with my children about it, and I told my son, who is 12 years old today, I said, thank you for kicking me in the womb when you did. And, you know, he bent, he said, I think it's emotional for him too, but I'm trying to normalize that conversation with my kids, and they know my story, you know, and I think if we do more of this, like not just talk and talk, but suicide survivors, let's stop holding ourselves back and letting that stigma of whenever, you know, of the fear of what people will say, the way I'll be judged if I talk, if I reach out for help. I reach out for help now globally more than locally, and I have no problem about it. You know, I really just want to say that it is high time people start to realize how much power they have. We didn't grow up thinking we had power, but I think the more exposed we are today, the more we realize we can do something, and let's not hold ourselves back. For example, joining the Global Mental Health Network in 2018, it's a different experience for me today in 2021. That's just 3 years. But you see, when we come together and then more and more people join, we realize, oh, our voices matter, our experiences are valid, and we don't need validation from, you know, our families and the whole world. Really, it's me. And if nobody believes me, I don't care. I know what I went through. And I think that if we have a friend who is also going through something, and they even trust us enough to open up.
Mary, I think we
Your life shitty and stuff, and say, I will listen to you. Just talk to me. And then, well, they don't want you to go start telling the whole world. Don't do that. You know, let's really just try to be each other.
Yeah.
It's perfect, Mary. We're so proud that you got out of it. And we're so proud of the way you spoke right now.
I think, Klaus, your turn. I see your hand up.
Yeah, one second.
Yeah, you just unmute.
Yeah, thank you for letting me being unmute. And yeah, I would like to echo a few points that Claudia has mentioned. First of all, about the mental health champion. I love this term, mental health champion. I would like to be one of them. And also, it's about suicide is not a crime, and it's not a sin, and it's not being bad also. This is very true. This is really important value and a cornerstone that we need to sustain and protect. And also, there's quite a good wisdom that we should call the ambulance, but not the police. And just a little question about what is the EAP? EAP referral. What is EAP? May I know that?
Claudia, can you answer that? He asked what EAP is.
Yeah, in your early slide, in the slide of how to prevent suicide. Oh, she kind of.
Sorry. Yeah, I wasn't able to unmute. It was disabled.
Oh my God.
So EAP is your employee assistance programs.
Ah.
So they also call it EWP, so employee wellness programs. So it's all at the workplace.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
And I agree a lot with. What's the name of the lady that just spoken?
Mary.
Mary. Yes, I appreciate that she highlighted the importance of respect of not willing to be helped and no need to be helped. And self-help is also equally important as help by others. And she mentioned this point is very important when someone is in so-called in need. We saw them in need, but it doesn't mean that he or she really thinks that he is in it or she is in it. So we need to respect and ask. We only offer help we only offer help for their needs only when they say they are willing to be helped. Never just kind of push their help into their mouth like that. That's just nothing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have one more question from Juhina. How to help someone who got suicidal thoughts because of their deteriorated health conditions, and they complain that they are feeling very tired always.
Okay. So the question, I just need to understand. So are you asking how do you help someone with the actual thoughts, or are you asking how do you help someone that's feeling suicidal because of a health condition?
I think here she means feeling suicidal because of the health condition.
Yeah. Okay. So I think for that, it's worth noting that there is a lot of counselors that deal with end of life processing, doulas that are involved in. So if you have a chronic illness and you're becoming depressed, there are counselors that actually deal with that as a specialization. So I would rather help that person reach out to the professional, because you're not going to be able to fix the health condition you as the friend or whatever, but help them get the assistance that they need. So if you need to just help them make that phone call or reach out or Google and find numbers or email addresses for them, your part is to listen and ask what do they need from you within reason that you can help with. And remember, this is very sensitive. Suicidal thoughts and feelings, it's a very sensitive subject matter. So you don't want to give the wrong advice and you don't want to do the wrong things. So if you're feeling that, my thing would be to, who's the specialist that can help you? Who could they talk to?
I think that's about it. Oh, we have a hand raised again.
Yeah. Class?
Thank you for the second chance of being unmute. And I just want to finally stress the importance of being present. The presence is much more important than what you do or what you speak or what you listen even. And your being is much more important than your doings, because we are not human doings. We are human beings, right?
Yes.
Sometimes just speak less and talk less and just listen and be there with him or her. Then so that they can feel the accompaniment, and so that they can feel someone is treasuring them, so that they can feel hope and satisfaction. Because recovery is very important in the three elements. That is hope, satisfaction, and contribution. Let them contribute to the world so that they feel being valued, they feel being loved and being validated, so that they can have their identity. They can find their identities. So that I guess this is the really core of preventing suicide, and this ignite the hope. Ignite the hope is really important.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Such a perfect point you made out there. Is there any doubts? Anyone else have any doubts or any questions that you would like to ask her? Or anything you guys would like to share? Anything you guys want to add on to it? Okay, I guess that's all from our audience. Claudia, would you like to say anything?
I think, you know, we come from such a, I think what Victor had said now just makes so much sense. We're not human doings, we're human beings. And I think that's something that has really resonated with me now as well. I feel like there is only so much that we can do, but we can always be there for someone, right? That's the main thing, is to be there and be present. My hope is that we don't only talk about suicide prevention on the 10th of September every year. I think this needs to be an ongoing effort by everybody collectively.
Yeah.
You know, we don't just like World Mental Health Day. Let's not just do it for World Mental Health Day. Let's not just do it for World Suicide Prevention Day. Let's talk about it. Let's join forces, organizations and individuals, and kind of talk about it some more so we can get through that stigma, break through the stigma, because that's what's holding us back. And that for me would just be my final words. And thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Claudia, for taking the time off of your busy schedule and joining us on the journey towards a more mentally aware society. I would also like to thank Indian Medical Association Medical Students Network from Karnataka and everyone who worked with us today to make this event a success, and everyone out here, the audience. Without you, it would not have been such an engaging, eventful session. And guys, let's take this message today for suicide prevention and move forward and ask all your close and loved ones if they are okay, and make sure we stay present for them. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Oh, and I completely forgot about one last thing. We have the post-event form, which will be sent on the chat box by Farzeen. Please fill that up so we can send in all your certificates through that.
Ooh, you want to take a photo?
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, I don't know if everybody maybe wants to put their cameras on and we take it. Well, if you can, Manisha, I'm not sure.
I think everyone can turn their photos can turn their cameras on.
Yeah.
Would you guys like to have a picture? Whoever is interested in turning their cameras on can go ahead and do that. Okay, we have quite a lot of people.
Yeah.
Farzeen, are you there? Just send the post-event form on the group, please, on the chat box. Yeah,
I'll send it now.
Yeah, okay. And Farzeen, turn on your camera too. Let's do the picture.
Sure, 1 second.
Yeah. That's okay, Zach. Just turn on your camera.
Zach has to turn on his camera. Hey, project manager, turn on your camera.
Okay. Everyone who would like to turn their cameras on are having it on. I'll click the picture. Farzeen, I still can't see your face. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Just stay on for another few minutes so we can send the post-event form.
Do I need to fill that out as well? Or
No.
okay.
Of course not, Claudia.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the post-event form is sent on the chat box. Please do fill it up for your certificates.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Claudia, for joining us.
Pleasure, not a problem. Bye.
Bye. Once you're done filling the form, you guys can leave the.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. You have done a great
Bye.
job. Bye-bye. Very nice.
Farzeen, isn't this ample enough time? Should I just end the meeting?
Yeah, you can end the meeting now, I guess. Go ahead. Thanks, Monisha.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.